Hey everyone, welcome to the Investor.Bet Melbourne Cup runner-by-runner preview. We've got 24 horses running in the 2025 Melbourne Cup, and in this video, just like we've done with the other feature videos through the spring so far, and we've had the winner in majority of races, and as always, I only ever back one horse in a race. I'm going to go through the entire field here, share with you which horses I think can win the race, which ones I think can't. It's obviously a race that you can't narrow it down to one horse. If you watched any of my videos previously, you'll know that if I'm betting in a race, I really want it to be just a race where there's one, two, or at most three winning chances, and ideally just one or two. The Melbourne Cup's definitely not one of those races. So I'm going to go through all the runners I think can win, which ones I think can't, and the most likely winners of those. But all in all, it's to help make sure the betting decisions you're making on the Melbourne Cup are the most informed as possible. To give you a quick overview, the Melbourne Cup is run over 3,200 meters at Flemington. So they start here just before the 1,000 meter mark towards the top of the home straight. They run right down the straight here, past the finishing post, and then go around and complete a lap of Flemington. The track was originally a good 3 on Sunday afternoon. It's moved into a soft 5 currently, and there's about 40 to 50 mils of rain expected across Monday and Tuesday morning. The Flemington track manager has said that it's potentially a soft 7, heavy 8 for the meeting on Tuesday afternoon. So with that rain throughout, there's only light winds around, so the wind shouldn't have too much of an impact. It's just how much of that rain hits the race course and what condition the track is in. Flemington does drain very well, so it should be fine from that perspective, and there's not that much rain late in the afternoon, but it's all leading up to the meeting, and they've moved the rail out to the 2 meter position. Before we get into all the runners, there's two really important things I want you guys to remember going into this. One is the Melbourne Cup is only one race of close to 50 metro races just on Tuesday on Melbourne Cup Day, let alone all the races throughout just this Melbourne Cup week and the month and the year. So try not to let your entire day hinge on just the result of this race. Personally, for me, I'll be betting into 16 to 20 other races on the day as well. We kicked off Melbourne Cup week on Saturday with a plus 10.8 unit day. We had 5 bets at Flemington. All 5 of those horses won. Same as last week in Melbourne at Moonee Valley on Cox Plate Day. We had 5 bets there for 5 wins. The week prior, Corfield Cup Day, the Saturday, we had 6 bets at Corfield for 4 winning bets there. So Melbourne has been playing out really well lately, and definitely now is that right time for that to continue. And going back to one of my first points here in this video is, I really like to just narrow a race down to 1 or 2 genuine chances. I was pretty ruthless when I went through this field and still could only get it down to 5 genuine chances and 3 kind of medium chances. So basically, 8 total runners, which is a third of the field who I think can win this race without surprising. I'm not really the biggest fan of exotics, your trifectas, your first 4, those kind of things, doing those on a regular basis, but this is a race where it can be worthwhile playing them, especially with the pool sizes, the size of the field, and the odds of the runners. What you don't want to happen though is to end up with 5 or 10 or even more bets on the race unless they're low staking, especially relevant to your unit size. I'd keep your outlay to 1.5%, absolute maximum, or if you want to bring that back to your bankroll, 1.5 units of 100 unit bankroll. So I'm going to go through every runner, share with you what I like, what I don't like about each, and the ones who can win and the ones who can't. One of the first things I like to do, especially for these major races, is go back and review the previous winners and the path they followed to win the race. So last year's winner, 2024 Knight's Choice, ridden by Robbie Dolan, carried 51 kilos from barrier number 5, started $91 in that race, was 5th up going into it, but had a deep prep with a 69-day freshen up in between, and across the prep that it won the race in and the prep prior, had 6 runs over 2,000 meters or more. Prior to the Melbourne Cup, ran 5th in the 400 meter Bendigo Cup as a lead up, had barrier number 1 there, beaten just over 5 lengths, and prior to that ran 14th, beaten 16.5 lengths in the Corfield Cup. Settled 14th in the run. The inside was definitely advantageous in last year's Melbourne Cup. Made a run through and I was able to win in a very close finish. The year prior, without a fight, ridden by Mark Zara, carried 56.5 kilos from barrier 16 as an $8 chance, was 3rd up going into that race, First up, ran 6th in the Underwood over 1,800 meters, beaten 2.2 lengths, then won the Corfield Cup over 2,400 meters in the run prior. Only won that by 0.2 of a length. Was a pretty dominant Melbourne Cup win. And without a fight, did what Half Yours is trying to do this year with make it the Corfield Cup, Melbourne Cup double. Back in 2022, Gold Trip won, also ridden by Mark Zahra with 57.5 kilos from barrier 13, was a $21 shot. Was 6th up in the preparation and in its first prep in Australia. Ran 9th, beaten 2 lengths in the Cox Plate. Leading in was ridden by Jamie Spencer. Prior to that, ran 2nd, beaten 0.2 of a length in the Corfield Cup. Obviously, Jamie Spencer, who rode in the Cox Plate, was off. Mark Zahra back on for the Melbourne Cup. Very Elegant one in 2021. Twilight Payment one in 2020. Some of the stats of the recent winners: 6 of the past 7 have been drawn out in barrier 12 or wider. Only one favorite since 2007 has won the Melbourne Cup, which was Fiorente in 2013. The last 3 winners ran in the Corfield Cup in their preparation, which gives us 10 runners in this year's Melbourne Cup. The next thing that I like to look at is the speed map of a race. Firstly, to give an indication of how quick the race is going to be run, what the tempo is going to be like, and get a general idea of which horses are going to be forward and at advantage by their gates, which horses are going to be back and potentially in traffic. The speed in this race comes from Smoke and Romans, who's drawn in barrier number 11, and Changing of the Guard, who's drawn out in barrier number 24 with the blinkers going on. I do expect River of Stars to look for a forward position again, Athabascan as well to kick up from the inside. I think the tempo of this race largely hinges on how quick Tim Clark wants to go on Changing of the Guard. There is the possibility he wants to roll along really quick, but I don't think he's going to want to go too hard. But I don't think we're going to get to see a slow run race. I think that would be the least likely outcome. I would expect Jay Mellum to be positive on Half Yours from the barrier. Especially like there's not a huge number of other runners wanting to go forward. Judge Nocturne, who's drawn right alongside, likely stays with it or tries to tag the back of Half Yours. James McDonald will roll forward on Maidan, in my opinion, as I doubt he wants to go back in this field and try and loop them or something like that. And I do also think Karen McAvoy will want to go forward on Absurd after what happened last year. And he has a reasonable gate to be able to do that in barrier number 4. I think he'll really want to make use of that. Al Riffa, who's drawn out in barrier number 19 for Mark Zahra, is probably one of the worst off on the draws alongside like Maidan and particularly Royal Supremacy. Those 3 like really get in awkward spots from their barriers. Al Riffa's going to need a really good ride from Mark Zahra, especially with the top weight coming into this. So some of the factors that you want to look at when analyzing these races is obviously the weight, very, very important. And as we go through the runners, I'll share with you the reason why that is the case. Jockey is very important in these races, and also the trainer, how they've gone in their lead-up races, and also the quality of those lead-up races. Some horses have been running in Group 1 races, some are coming out of Group 3's overseas form, the quality of those races, and one of the big ones for the Melbourne Cup, the 3,200 meters, how will the horse handle the distance? So you can go back through their bloodlines and the breeding to determine if the horse is going to be how well suited over the distance. The barrier matters in alignment with the speed map, because wide draws haven't necessarily been bad because they've got that nice long straight run. However, if you're a horse that wants to settle midfield and you're drawn wide, then that's really dangerous. If you're a horse that drops back and you're drawn low, then you're going to have a lot of traffic in front of you. So those are all relevant. And then especially for this year, because we're going to likely be running on a wet track, the condition and being able to handle the conditions matters quite a lot. So in terms of the form here, I'm going to use the racing.com form guide, and generally normally use the punters.com.au form guide for these videos. However, there's been a lot of errors in that of late, so I'm going to use the racing.com one for this race. And there was also errors in it for the Melbourne Cup, so just make sure you're double checking everything that you're looking at. Going through them in runner order. Al Riffa, number 1, ridden by Mark Zahra, has barrier 19 and 59 kilos on his back. The standard bit goes on for the first time. I'm going to give you the prices from exactly what they were immediately following the barrier draw on Saturday afternoon. Al Riffa is trained by Joseph O'Brien, who previously won the Melbourne Cup on Rekindling in 2017 and Twilight Payment in 2020. Al Riffa is probably the best horse he has brought to Australia on class-wise. Gets Mark Zahra on to ride, who's won 2 of the last 3 Melbourne Cups, and has also won 4 races on Saturday, including 2 Group 1 races. So he's in really, really good form, knows how to win this race. Has to carry the top weight of the 59 kilos, 2 kilos more than any other horse. Maccabi Diva won in 2005 with 58 kilos and was getting a mare's allowance. It has been done, and it is possible, relevant to the sex of the horse. That was Maccabi Diva's 3rd Melbourne Cup win in a row in 2005. You need to go back to 1954 to find a horse that has won with 59 kilos or more. That was Rising Fast with 59.5 kilos. Though has been a proven weight carrier in the past with 58 or more kilos in all 5 runs this preparation, but this is definitely the toughest test. Has never run over the 3200, but previously is coming off a dominant 4-length Group 1 Irish St. Ledger win when carrying 61.5 kilos in that race, winning by 4 lengths. That suggests it should be fine, and definitely is the class overseas runner coming over for this race first up. Likes the races spaced out, so I'm not super worried about the gap between runs, and has been running in Group 1s and Group 2s all prep, and the last 3 have all been 2,400 meters and beyond. Definitely would prefer a dry track. Its record on good tracks, 7 stars, 3 wins, 3 seconds, and a 3rd placing, yet has only won 2 races from 7 on soft ground and has never seen a heavy track. The last start Group 1 was on a soft track, so it is suited from that perspective. Barrier 19 definitely makes it tough, and it's going to need to cover extra ground with the big weight, and also likely going to have to make a long sustained run, which on a wet track definitely makes it tough. Expect Mark Zahra to try and find a spot 3 wide with cover around the midfield. For this horse to win, it's going to need everything to go absolute perfect. You've got the big weight, first up, wet ground, and a wide barrier. No doubt Mark Zahra can work magic in big Group 1 races, but there's quite a bit against him here, especially at the $9. So at the price, happy to be against him, and for him to win, he's just going to have to be very good. The next horse is number 2, Buckaroo, who was an $8 chance. Trained by Chris Waller, who's flying right now. Won the Cox Plate last week with Via Sistina, the Golden Eagle on Saturday with Autumn Glow. Won the Melbourne Cup in 2021 with Very Elegant. This is the first of his 5 runners in this race. Craig Williams takes over the ride, who won this race back in 2019 on Bow Declare. This will be his first ride on Buckaroo. I'm not really worried about that, and I also think Craig Williams' style will suit this horse. I think it's a good match. Carries 57 kilos, which is 2.5 kilos more than he had in this race last year when he had 54.5, and hasn't won a race in between. So got to go right back to the Underwood last year was the last time Buckaroo won a race. Was ridden by Joe Moreira in the Melbourne Cup last year. Started $6. That's the reason why we're seeing this $8, $9 kind of price for it this year. Had barrier 20 there to deal with. Was coming off a 2nd placing in the Corfield Cup last year. This time comes off a 2nd placing in the Cox Plate, right up alongside Via Sistina. Just couldn't quite go past. Has had 4 Group 1 races this prep, but they've all been between this 1,400 and 2,040 meter distance. Now needs to step up to the 3,200. Was a touch slow away in the race last year, and from the barrier ended up wide the trip, made this big long sweeping run out in absolute no man's land, and actually loomed up like a major threat, but peaked on the run late. And it was also a day favoring the inside, which adds extra merit to the performance. I really would have loved to see a 2,400 meter run this preparation, as opposed to 2 starts like in the Corfield Stakes and in the Cox Plate over the 2,000-ish meter journeys. But I think you can trust the stable here that they'll have the horse right to go. They know what happened last year, and that would have been all factored into this. Draw is much better this time around in gate 12, and I think that's perfect for Craig Williams because it's going to need a very tactical ride here. Can't just drop back and loop the field. Needs to find the right backs to follow, get a drag into the race, and save the sprint up for the home straight as opposed to making a long searching run. Soft track will be fine, handles all conditions. As I said, started $6 in the Melbourne Cup last year, was given no chance, but still produced a very big run considering. Drawn better this time. Craig Williams takes a ride. Those are both positives. And if he can find the right back to drag him into the race and slice through the field, I think can definitely be a big chance. He has tuned up with that close second to Via Sistina in the Cox Plate. Did head Sir Delius in the Underwood, but peaked on the run, suggesting like there's more to come and they're building. The only concern is like, does Buckaroo want to win a race? Hasn't won for quite some time now. Has run some good seconds, had chances to win, but just hasn't wanted to go past other runners. There is the concerns there, and there's another one that under this $10 mark, I'm happy to be against. Number 3, Arapaho, ridden by Rachel King, has barrier 15 at 56.5 kilos. It was a $51 chance, trained by Bjorn Baker. Rachel King always rides this horse. She's ridden in 6 of his 10 career wins. Gets in with 56.5 kilos, carried 52.5 in the 2023 Melbourne Cup, so 2 years ago. Ran 11th there behind Gold Trip, beaten 11 lengths from barrier 18 as a $61 chance. Dropped back to 20th in the run, so got a long way off them in that race. Comes off an 8th place finish in the Group 3 Bendigo Cup last start. That's over 2,400 meters, and wasn't really given much of a hope at all to win this race. So I feel like you can definitely put a line through last start. Quietness and Sadati controlled, leading and box seating in the run. Arapaho had 61 kilos, settled second last from barrier number 1, and then was the widest runner in the home turn on the home straight, where the fence was a big advantage on the day. Prior to that, was beaten 9.5 lengths in the Group 1 Metropolitan in Sydney, which is also around a 1.5 mile race. That was won by Royal Supremacy. Was giving Royal Supremacy 8 kilos that day. This time it's only 5.5 kilos, so it gets a weight swing, but it is a huge margin to overcome. Is now 6th up in the prep, and all runs have been in Group 3 or better. Just, I think with Arapaho, most likely it's just been building up to this race. At the end of last preparation, we'll be able to see here, you can see the Group 1 Sydney Cup from barrier number 11. That was over the 3,200 meter distance. Won that by 3 lengths in a field of 20, carried 56 kilos. Beat River of Stars by 3.5 lengths, carrying 4 kilos more than that horse. It's 5 kilos more on Tuesday. So that form, definitely stacks up well there for Arapaho. Prior to the Sydney Cup win, ran 4th in the Group 1 Tancred in Sydney over the 2,400 meters. Drawn in barrier 15 makes it somewhat tricky, potentially ends up either dropping back or sitting wide with some cover around midfield. He is now a 9-year-old gelding, and a 9-year-old has never won the race. So that's the big thing against Arapaho. Only 2 runs on the track have been in the Melbourne Cup in 2023 and the Champion Stakes last year, when 5th behind Via Sistina. Best suited on rain-affected tracks, so he's one you can give a tick to if this track is very wet, which it's looking like it will be. Arapaho is a combination of positives and negatives, but I think the 9-year-old factor is really a detrimental one to the chances, especially considering it's not an ideal map. Produced a dominant Sydney Cup win early this year, but needs to go even better here with the way the prep has gone, and I just feel like they're just not quite at the level. So I'm happy to be against it with the setup. Number 4, Vauban. He'll be ridden by Blake Shin from barrier number 2 for the Waterhouse and Bott stable. Gay Waterhouse won this race back in 2013 on Fiorente. Blake Shin, who won the Melbourne Cup in 2008, he's riding well, but he's not quite at the level percentage-wise that he was in April through to September this year. He rode Vauban for the first time last start in the Corfield Cup when ran 13th, beating just over 8 lengths. That was behind Half Yours. Blake Shin did say that Vauban didn't handle Corfield well. Kind of looked to be on the wrong leg as well, coming around the turn. Drops 2 kilos off that run down to the 56.5, which is 1 kilo more than he carried in this race last year when running 11th, beaten 5 lengths as an $8 chance. Starts from barrier number 10 in that race with William Buick riding. Is better suited this time for sure with Blake Shin on. Has had 4 runs this prep so far. Placed 3rd first up over the 1600 behind Lindemann and Sir Delius. Close up 5th to Royal Supremacy when getting to the 2400 for the first time in the Metropolitan this preparation. Then did have to carry the top weight in the Corfield Cup, but didn't close off well at all, and does have a lot of ground to make up on the horses who beat him home there. The distance is no issue if he's right. He can run out the 3200. Is a horse previously has gotten worked up pre-race, kind of blown his chances there. But if he can parade well, which now having had the preparation in Australia should help that as opposed to flying in and out. Drawn for a soft run from barrier number 2, but it's probably going to land with on the fence or somewhere in that vicinity midfield with quite a lot of traffic around him, and is going to need luck at a key stage. Blake Shin is a jockey who can find the gaps and slice through up underneath horses, but if this track is very wet, it's going to be kicked back. It's going to not be ideal for Vauban. Both career runs at Flemington have been in the Melbourne Cup. Started $5.50 in the 2023 Cup with Ryan Moron, ran 14th, beaten 13.5 lengths, and then 11th in the race last year. But I think the big thing with Vauban is the last 2 Melbourne Cups you can somewhat forgive in terms of this horse flying in for the race from overseas and didn't really turn up in the yard mentally, didn't handle it, and ran the race prior. This time around, being trained by Waterhouse Spot, different setup, different preparation, is parading better. I don't think you can fully rule it out. And if you've backed it the last 2 years at favorite or near enough to favorite, I feel like you need to have something on here when it's triple to 4 times the odds this time around. Number 5 is the Japanese runner, Rose, ridden by Damien Lane, who generally takes these rides for this stable. It's a $51 chance. Japanese horse that's coming over for the Australian debut here. Damien Lane aiming for his first Melbourne Cup win, carries 55.5 kilos. This horse hasn't raced for 79 days. The last race was a Group 2 over 2,000 meters when running 14th, beaten 10.5 lengths. Last race over the 3,200 in May, went 7th, beaten 10.3 lengths in a Group 1. So I'm questioning the lead in form, both from a fitness perspective, having only had that one 2,000 meter run in basically the last 5 months overall, and also just how well this horse is traveling in general. I think the 3,200 meter distance will be okay, especially with a good run from barrier number 5. He did win a Group 2 over 3,600 meters around this time last year. Should get a good forward run around midfield, just in behind the speed. However, first run in Australia, and this is a horse that needs a dry track, which very unlikely that that's going to happen at all. So it's hard to see him go close to winning here on a wet track. I'm definitely one usually wary of Japanese runners coming over, but more so for middle distance races. And with the lead in and the wet track, it's just all too much for this horse. Number 6, Nocturne. We need to get into some horses that are actually chances in the race. This horse, ridden by Stéphane Pasquier from barrier number 9, is a $9 chance. The jockey here is a French jockey, has ridden Presage Nocturne in 4 of his last 5 starts. Do really like the fact he rode in the Corfield Cup last start with this horse. It is a jockey that has traveled around with horses and won big races around the world, so I'm not super worried. Sometimes, you got to be very wary of these fly-in jockeys in these races. Local knowledge, local riders who ride Flemington most weeks of the year is usually a very big advantage. Or not necessarily they have to ride Flemington all the time, just have had plenty of rides there as opposed to it being their first time. So that is a little bit of concern, but I think this jockey can get the job done, especially where he's drawn in barrier number 9. He's right outside Jamie on half yours, and I think he's just going to look for the back of half yours and let half yours drag him into the race and just go wherever Jamie Mellum goes. Coming into this race, was off a 55-day freshen up into the Corfield Cup, settled in the second half of the field, was really suited by the pace of Adelaide River, kept on finding the line, was carrying 5 kilos more than half yours there. That cuts in half this time. It's only a 2.5 kilo weight difference. In that Corfield Cup, you got to note that Presage Nocturne was given the drag into the race following half yours round the turn into the home straight, came off the winner's back, but then didn't really close the margin that much. Is definitely better suited up in distance. The only other run this prep was first up over the 3,000. Off an 8-week let up, came back in trip to the 2,400 meter journey, and over the 3,000 ran third in a Group 2 with the 59 kilos. Virtually all this horse's form is 2,500 to 3,000 meters, so should run out the distance fine. And that Corfield Cup run on a good tempo would definitely have been a nice tune-up. Couldn't have drawn better in barrier 9. Should settle midfield with cover. Likely have the back of the favourite. Handled Corfield last start as well, but I think first time going to Flemington, can't see it being an issue. Potentially is even better suited, and wet ground, no issue. This horse is one that's definitely suited by a wet track. They've got exactly what they're looking for. Ticks plenty of boxes, and realistically should be in the finish if it runs up to its best. Nice run first up in the Corfield Cup, better suited now up in distance, gets the wet track, which is preferred. Add to that with the favourite draw next door. He's just got the perfect back to follow into the race, assuming it jumps well. Number 7, Middle Earth, ridden by Ethan Brown from Barrier 13, is a $34 chance. Kieran Maher has won 2 of the 3 Group 1s in Melbourne on Saturday, plus a $3 million race in Sydney with Jimmy Starr. Stable's going pretty well. Won the Melbourne Cup back in 2022 with Gold Trip. Ethan Brown took over from Mark Zahra last start on this horse, and Zahra had previously rode 6 of the 7 Australian starts. So I do find that interesting and does definitely hurt the chances here of Middle Earth. Will be backing up for his 3rd race in 3 weeks, so he's been stringing together consecutive starts. Last start dropped back to the 2,040 meters after running in the Corfield Cup and ran 3rd in the JRA Cup at the Valley, which is a Group 3. Prior to that was 11th, beaten 6.2 lengths in that Corfield Cup. Gets a similar weight swing to Presage Nocturne from that race on the runners that beat him home. However, was back in the field, had the chance to run on and didn't really make up a lot of ground. Probably should have done more than he did. The only run in Australia basically beyond 2,000 meters was that Corfield Cup. It was poor. Overseas form is 24 to 2,800 meters, but since they've got to Australia, they haven't really been running well in any 2,400 meters races. They've just been keeping it strictly to this 2,000 meter journey. So there's big question marks there. It's drawn a ride in Barrier 13, had a soft run in the Corfield Cup from Barrier 3 with Zahra on, and had the tempo there, but didn't really do anything. Did beat the 2024 Corfield Cup winner Duke de Sessa earlier this year at Flemington over the 2,000. That was its first start in Australia, but the other 2 runs at Flemington have been poor, and I definitely would prefer a dry track. Do find it hard to be against Kieran Maher trained horses in staying races, but I just question this horse running out a strong 3,200 on a wet track. Number 8, Maidan, ridden by James McDonald, has Barrier 22, is a $17 chance. Trained by Simon and Ed Crisford. Raced in the Corfield Cup off a 42-day freshen up. First run in Australia. Did end up, like this was a howler of a ride on Maidan. Ended up 3 wide without cover from barrier number 5 the entire trip. Then was one of the widest on the turn as the horses inside pushed out and pushed Andre Atzini even wider there. Covered so much extra ground. Kind of got off balance as well, getting around the corner at Corfield. And if you keep on watching, like once Maidan balanced up, had room, he did hit the line well, and then started making up some ground. James McDonald taking over is a huge jockey change, drops the 2 kilos from the Corfield Cup. Distance is a bit of a question mark. Most of the overseas form is around the 2,400 meters. Does have a Group 2 4th placing over 2,800 meters. Due to the way that it hit the line and hit the line well in the Corfield Cup off that tough run. And all word is the horse has improved fitness-wise, which definitely would be likely the way that it came into this race. I think the distance should be fine. Definitely just think they would have much preferred a better gate than barrier number 22. I think this does really hinge on the first 600 meters for James McDonald. Is going to need that ideal ride early to be being caught wide again like last. McDonald can get the job done, but the question is obviously, do they drop back and get cover and come with a big run, or does he roll forward and try and slot in? I think the better option is probably to roll forward and try and slot in. There's plenty of time to do that, but it's a very tricky draw to do that from. If McDonald gets the ride perfect, then you definitely can't dismiss this horse, and they just had so many excuses in the Corfield Cup, and we're getting fairly big odds. Like this horse just does keep pushing out into the mid-20s. It's one that's on the some chance list if with the right run. Like if McDonald nails the ride here, and there's every chance that he will, then it's going to be suited. Probably doesn't want it to be too wet. I think soft ground should be okay for him. Number 9, Absurd. Barrier number 4 here for Karen McAvoy is a $21 chance. Trained by Willie Mullins. Generally brings over a horse that's pretty well hyped, but yet to win the race. Karen McAvoy takes a ride on the same horse he rode last year, and he's won this race 3 times. Down to the 53.5 kilos. Had the inside gate in the Corfield Cup. First up off a 63-day spell. Was pretty well ridden there by Ben Allen. Popped away from the fence at the right time. Was inside half yours coming to the turn. Couldn't get around Deacon on straightening though, and then didn't quite run it out strongly. Didn't love that, but it was an okay run. And Compared to last preparation where they was coming first up into the race, I think it's better suited this time. Last year ran fifth, beaten 1.7 lengths behind Knight's Choice from barrier 6 as a $10 chance. Was first up, as I said, going into that race, still produced a good run, and was also first up in 2023 and loomed as the winner on straightening after being forward in the run, but then was no match for the swoopers without a fight, Solcombe all running on. It's had that 2,400 meter tune up this time. In the race last year, ended up near last on the fence, and was only hope there was to ride for luck. Ran into a few brick walls. You see, was running on, had Knight's Choice the winner on his outside, and got checked for a run twice in the home straight and only just finished on the heels of the winners. I think Absurd could have gone very close with a clear passage there, but was one that was suited by the way the track was playing that day. Only carries a kilo more this time, but fitness-wise, it's looking better and it's drawn similar again from barrier 4. Should get a soft run. Just don't think McAvoy will want to be last on the fence again, especially on a wet track. I think his option A will be try to hold a spot midfield here. So he's going to need luck for sure. He's 8-year-old now. Potentially, it's like getting to last chance territory. They might have missed their opportunity last year, to be honest. I feel like last year was the one for Absurd. Started $10 or less in both Melbourne Cups. So another one similar to Vauban that if you backed it at this last two, you might just need to stick with it at the $20+ odds again this time around. Has previously won on heavy and soft tracks, but probably for pros dry. With the map that it looks to get and what it did last year, it's definitely one that I also can't rule out, particularly at the price. Number 10, we have Flatten the Curve. Ridden by Thorm Hammer Hansen from barrier 17. That's a name and a half. 53.5 kilos, so not super well weighted considering the class of races coming out of over in America. Was off an 8-week let-up when winning last start over the 3,300 meters on a firm track. Off a similar break here, but much harder race. Is suited by the distance, but I think the class of this race definitely brings this horse back to the pack. The overall record, 10 starts for 6 wins. All that looks really good. The jockey, Thorhammer Hansen, has had plenty of starts on this horse, 14 for 4 of its 6 wins. Not the easiest rides, though, from barrier 17 for a visiting jockey having their first ride in Australia. Settled last in a run last start in a small field, produced a good sprint. So from barrier 17, expect them to want to sit back. Obviously, first time going around in Australia, would have preferred a dry track. But it's one that, if it is a slog on a wet track, can handle it, especially if it feels like the 3,200 meters plus. But at the current odds, with it being a $31 chance, I think is more of a $50 to $60 chance, to be honest. We'll quickly get through these next few. Number 11, Land Legend, ridden by Joe Moreira from barrier 16, is a hundreds chance. Trained by Chris Waller, so you can't rule it completely out off the trainer combination, but can't really see Joe Moreira winning this race. Comes off a last place finish in the Corfield Cup. Had a wide draw, but no other excuses for the run prior to that, and was one suited by the pace as well. Ran last in the Turnbull over the 2,000 in the run prior to that. Sticks up in the prep, but just doesn't seem to be going that well. Is drawn wide again here in barrier 16. So let's just go back from there and just see what happens. Let it unfold. Last year they rolled forward from a similar draw, but was going forward last preparation. This preparation, they're dropping back in races. So you need to see a change of tactics. Otherwise, it's most likely to assume they're going to drop back and not do a great deal. The distance is fine based off last year's performance, but Zach Purton on that day and isn't going anywhere near as well. Last year, going into that Melbourne Cup, ran third in the Corfield Cup. This year ran last, beaten almost 20 lengths. Flemington should suit, but hasn't shown much runs in the both of the starts here. It's going to need a monumental form reversal to be winning here and can't have it, even with the Waller yard. Number 12, Smokin' Romans, ridden by Ben Mellum from barrier 11. Trained by Kieran Maher, is another hundreds chance, has barrier 11. Think they'll look to try and find the front here. Probably ends up getting crossed by changing of the guard. Was only just run down by Revelari over 2,000 meters, 4 runs back. Led the Underwood, but then went far too quick under John Allen there. Led the Group 2 Herbert Power, wasn't beaten all that far. It was a 1.5 length margin. Then pulled up lame last start in the 2,500 meter Moonee Valley Cup. That was behind One Smooth Operator and Athabascan. The 2 runners that come out of that race, they ran 1-2. Smokin' Romance ran 8th in that race. Had the box seat in the run, but was held up in traffic rounding the turn. Never really got a chance, and then you add in the lame factor, which it's not ideal to be coming into the Melbourne Cup off pulling up lame last start. The leader dropped out to run last. That was the reason that Smoke and Romans ran into a traffic jam there. Has had 2 runs leading in over the 2,400 and 2,500 meters. I'm just not sure if this horse can stretch it to the 3,200 as a 9-year-old. Plenty of experience at Flemington, but only 2 wins there from 12 starts, and is better suited at other tracks that favor on-speed horses, but will handle all conditions. We'll roll forward, he'll either lead or be second in the run, most likely, if changing of the guard crosses, but I can't see them holding them off. Speaking of changing the guard, that's number 13, drawn the widest barrier for Tim Clark as a 100's chance. Chris Lees puts the blinkers on for the first time. So from barrier 24, expect they'll be rolling to the front, and Tim Clark, who's a very good front-running jockey in Australia, should be able to control this race how he wants to. There's obviously question marks how quick they want to go. I think he'll be wanting to go just a touch above average without just absolutely gassing the horse. Dropped 7 kilos off the 6th placing in the Geelong Cup. Was beaten 3.9 lengths there. Sat outside Gilded Water in the run. And the winner of the race, Torrenzino, had his back. So Torrenzino was 1 out, 1 back. Has had plenty of runs, 5 this prep, that have been between the 24 and 2,500 meter distance range, but it's a bit outclassed here. If we got like a very leaderish track and there was absolutely no pressure, then maybe at a real stretch could hang on if Tim Clark nails the ride and the rest of the jockeys are a bit asleep. Did run well at Flemington in his only start there earlier this prep, went second after being outside the lead and gets the blinkers on. So that's why I think they're going to try and go to the front here. Best runs have come on dry ground, and we just need everything to fall perfectly into place from barrier 24 and a wet track, and doesn't get that. Number 14, Half Yours, Jamie Mellon, barrier 8. This is the Corfield Cup winner and was a $6 favorite after the barrier draw with that good gate that it's drawn. Tony and Calvin McAvoy, they have the only Australian-born horse in the race. Jamie Mellon became the first female jockey to win the Corfield Cup on this horse a couple of weeks ago. Now aims to be the second female jockey to win the Melbourne Cup and has the current favourite to be able to do that. Carries an extra half a kilo, so goes up to 53 kilos on the back of that win in the Corfield Cup. That race, to quickly break it down, Adelaide River set a hot tempo. Half Yours was brought to the middle of the track by Jamie Mellon, hit the line well, held off River of Stars, who ducked up along the inside and had a really good run on the speed along the fence. Gets that slight rise in weight and a negative weight swing on the horses that he beat there. Prior to that, finished 4th in the Turnbull, basically alongside Via Sestina, who went on to win the Cox Plate. That was the only career run that it's had at Flemington. Is a listed in Group 1 winner over 2,400 meters, 2 from 2 at the trip. Yet to see further, so that's a bit of a question mark, but off the breeding, this horse should handle it. The trials to begin this prep were way back in February. The first run was in March. It's had a couple of freshen ups throughout, but it's been a long preparation. This will be the 10th run. The fitness should be there, but I just don't know how much more upside is there to come off that last win. The horse just generally hits the line and runs really well. Should get the right run just forward of midfield and can handle all conditions perfectly fine. Trying to do what Without a Fight did a couple of years ago and win the Corfield Cup, Melbourne Cup double. Would love to see Half Yours win for the Australian factor. And it's a horse that I've been with for most of his wins throughout his career. Jamie Mellon said she was confident he'd run the trip immediately after the Corfield Cup, and gets everything to suit here. Like, you can tick just about every box here for Half Yours. So I do think it's deserving favourite. Just needs to offset that weight advantage of the horses that were in behind, and will be a very good training performance to be winning. Number 15, More Felons, Tommy Barry, barrier 23 is a $71 chance, trained by Chris Waller. 53 kilos, has had nearly a year and a half off before resuming back on the 30th of August at Corfield. Produced a big run there into... Following that, went up to the 2000, then third up, ran in the Group 1 Metropolitan and produced a big run, flashed home from out the back at $151. That then put it up to a sub $4 shot in the Group 3 St. Ledger. Over 2,600 meters, was beaten just over a length. Had its chance to win there behind Travolta. Ran 12th in this race last year, beaten 9 lengths with 50.5 kilos. This time around has to carry 53 kilos, so not all that well suited. Had barrier 23 as well well that day. Jamie Carr restrained early, found the fence in the run, saved all the ground on the inside, potentially in the worst ground, peaked late on the run at the 200-meter mark. So distance is definitely questionable with this 3200. Expect they'll likely drop back again to last here, try to make a big run. The run a couple of years ago was at Flemington. Won't mind giving the ground, has performed well in Group 3 and listed on soft tracks. If they drop back from the gate, likely ends up with too much work to do and just don't think can sustain a big enough run with the 53 kilos in order to be winning. So too many map issues for me. Number 16, One Smooth Operator, ridden by Harry Coffey from Barrier 6, is a $15 chance. Do think this is unders. First up, this prep coming back over to Australia again, sat last in the Moonee Valley Cup. Zara didn't panic, swept up, put them away nicely, won his way into the race last year in similar fashion, sat wide in the Geelong Cup, put a margin on them there. Struggled a bit last prep overseas, but consistently runs in this 24 to 2800 meter range. Got caught 3 wide the trip in the race last year. Was sitting outside the winner Knight's Choice in the run, back in the field with cover. Copped a bump on straightering, but was never really in the race, so it's hard to gauge the overall performance with such a tough run. Should run the distance okay, especially from a soft draw in Barrier 6. Will get a better run than last year, but still expect they'll be back in the field. Will need gaps to appear at the right time. Didn't have the turn of foot over this distance last year. Shown it in the mile-and-a-half races, but not in the 3200 meter trips. Just had the one run at Flemington in the last year's Melbourne Cup. The rain is the big worry for this horse, as it definitely needs a dry track. Slightly concerning, he's never been in the placings from 4 second up runs as well. So do we see a repeat of last year and a bit of a flat performance? I just think he's a little bit too short in the current market as well. Number 17, Further, ridden by Michael D from Barrier 7, is a $23 chance. Trainer is Andrew Balding, comes into this on 52-day freshen up after running in the Group 1 St. Ledger at Doncaster. Finished 6th there, beaten 4.5 lengths by Scandinavia. Drops from 58.5 down to 52 kilos, has solid UK form over the 1.75 mile distances. So every indication the 3200 will be okay. Barrier 7 is the real question mark with this horse for me. It looks good on paper, but it's going to be in a lot of traffic from where it's going to settle in the run. If you notice in that St. Ledger replay, kept this horse a little wide and back in the early stages to allow him to relax before tucking in with cover. Michael D is not going to have that luxury. He'll have horses all around him, and you don't want to be overdoing it early. And if he's just wasting energy over racing, it's going to be very tough. First up in Australia, he's going to have to get everything right here to be winning. Seems to have like good ability, but I just question the run this horse is going to get strung up in traffic, over racing, doing too much. Overseas, they race fairly spread out. In Australia, they race very tight and bunchy. He's going to have 8 horses basically surrounding, so it's interesting to see how he copes in the run. Parchment Party, ridden by John Velasquez from Barrier 3, is a $51 chance, in with 52 kilos. Comes off into this of an 89-day spell, 2 wins at the end of last preparation. Those wins were 2,800 meters. However, they're enlisted in Group 3 grades. Interesting that one was on the heavy and one was on the dirt, so it's a bit adaptable, this horse, or was the only one to at least handle the heavy at Saratoga that day, and it was an 8.5 length margin. Is yet to be tested above 2,800 meters and has quite a lot of form around the 1,800 meter mark. Like, they've only just kind of decided they want to get over more ground with this horse, it does seem like. From Barrier 3, gets a soft run, but it's hard to see him running this out strongly with an 89 days since last start and traveling, and could end up in plenty of traffic. If you see that replay from over in America last time, was being worked really hard coming around the corner and just outlasted them coming up the fence, not going around the horse. It was a tough win, but I don't think that racing style's going to work here. Number 9, Athabascan, Declan Bates from Barrier 1 with 51.5 kilos, is a 100 shot. Definitely needs to try and hold ground up along the inside. Just comes off that second in the Moonee Valley Cup behind One Smooth Operator. Settled out the back there as well, suggesting like the race was suited for those run-on horses. Had been struggling prior to that up in Sydney, not really having the best preparation. Has a 2nd and a 5th in the Sydney Cups, over 3,200 over the last couple of years. So we'll get the distance, but similar to Arapaho, this is another level. Don't think the inside gate is going to be enough. Declan Bates going on, he's a good forward and on-speed jockey. I think he'll look to hold up a forward spot along the fence. At worst, either be box seat or 3 back the fence. 3 runs at Flemington. Did run second in the Archer Stakes on this day 2 years ago as favourite, ridden by James McDonald, but the other 2 runs have been poor in Group 3 listed races. I don't think the conditions are going to make much of a difference, but was going to need, like, last start was a good form reversal and ties in One Smooth Operator, but was race shape dependent, and I think it's a bit of a drag on the One Smooth Operator. I don't think Athabaskan is quite up to it. Number 20, Goody Two Shoes, ridden by Wayne Lorden from Barrier 20. It's a $41 chance. 7-year-old mare, the first of only 2 mares in this race. Wayne Lorden's not the regular rider of this horse. Runs into this first up off a 94-day spell, strung together 3 wins last preparation, all in listed in Group 3 grade, 2,800 to 3,200 with 58 or more kilos. Drops down to the 51.5 here, considering carried 61 in a Group 2 at Goodwood, but just brings a lower grade form from overseas. Think the distance should be okay, but it's a tough run from Barrier 20. Ideally, they want to go forward, but it's a bit of a risk of being caught wide without cover, even if they do too much early, off a sizable spell as well. First run in Australia, overseas jockey, it's all big ass, so I think it's even too short at the $40. And with the same stable as Al Riffa, the number 1 horse, and do they try to use Goody Two Shoes in a role to help Al Riffa? That'll be interesting. But with all the question marks for Goody Two Shoes, they also have the concussion plates going on the front for the first time, so it's hard to see her bringing her best form. Number 21, River of Stars, Bo Mertens, Barrier 14, is $17 chance with 51.5 kilos. This is Waller's 4th runner and his only mare in the race. He did win it with Very Elegant, who's a mare back in 2021. Bo Mertens has been on for the past 2 starts. Massive run for second in the Corfield Cup. Was only beaten half a length by Half Yours and was the only runner to stay on after being up on speed with the tempo set by Adelaide River. Started $91 there and was the closest to Half Yours, but still gets the 2.5 kilo weight swing. Got caught up in traffic in the Turnbull on this course over the 2000. Was a bit unlucky. When you look at it, looked a bit unlucky, but just then wasn't quickening when it had some room late. That was the only run at Flemington we've seen. Would have liked that to be a little bit of a better run to be more confident here, and has some pretty massive SPs. Ran 3rd in the Sydney Cup earlier this year behind Arapaho after sitting outside the lead. Stuck on well there and had only had the 1 lead up run of a 25-week spell. It's more set up to run better in this race, and also is the target according to the stable, similar to Valiant King as well. Drawn in Barrier 14, so tactics are going to be interesting. I think they're going to roll forward again. Has proven she can go forward and stay on well like they did in the Corfield Cup. So it'll be up to Bolmer to try and slot in and roll forward. If he does that, he's definitely a chance. The question, like with this horse, is what price can you back it at? Has a terrible SP profile, $151 chance in the Turnbull, $91 in the Corfield Cup, was 20 in the Sydney Cup when it ran there. Handles all the conditions with the right stable, with the right run. Just think is like building and peaking at the right time. In September last year, finished alongside Presage Nocturne over 3,100 meters, carrying 1.5 kilos less than Presage Nocturne, get 4 kilos less this time. So you can really tie in River of Stars in a number of ways. Number 22, Royal Supremacy, ridden by Robbie Dolan from Barry, number 21 with 51 kilos. There's a $26 chance. Robbie Dolan won this race last year. Carries 1 kilo more than he carried to win the Metropolitan in Sydney 2 starts back, beating more Felons, Vauban, Athabaskan, changing of the guard in that field. The last 5 runs have all been good. Comes into this off a 5th in the Corfield Cup. Gets a 1.5 kilo weight drop. Has been in work since late April, and the last 3 runs have been the 23 to 2,400 meters, so is ready to be tested at the 3,200. The concern is that this horse struggles to relax in the run, so running out a strong 3,200 whilst wasting so much extra energy is very tough to do, especially with Barry 21. Likely will be covering some extra ground as well. Handles all the conditions okay, but would definitely prefer dry ground, especially with the question over the distance, and also this will be his first time around Flemington. If he relaxes, then is some hope, but it just seems unlikely based on what we've seen so far. Bookies will also, I think, keep this runner somewhat safe, as there's going to be money for it based off the Robbie Dolan factor and him winning last year at sizable odds. Torrenzino is number 23 for Celine Gaudray. Barrier 18 is a $26 chance. Earned his way into the race with the win in the Geelong Cup, given a perfect ride by Celine Gaudray there, sitting one out, one back, and timing the run to pick up Gilded Water. She retains the ride and has always gotten the best out of this horse. 7 rides, 3 wins, 3 seconds, and has been unplaced in the other 3 races ridden by a different jockey. Prior to that win, ran second in the Bart Cummings behind Valiant King. Torrenzino was in a real awkward spot there behind Gilded Water, going along very quick out in front, and she was caught in a spot dragging the field up to Gilded Water. That race was set up perfectly for Valiant King to run home over the top, but there's still good merit to the performance. Carries a 1.5 kilos more than Valiant King in that race too, running second to it. Did start a $71 chance though. Drops 5 kilos off the last start win right down to the 51 kilo minimum. Around 2,400 does seem to be the sweet spot, so is a question mark at the 3,200 and has been untested beyond 2,500 meters, and barrier 18 doesn't really help that cause. They've been going forward in the last 3 runs from good barriers, but they don't get that here. Do they try their luck, roll the dice, or do they drop back? I think their only hope really is to go forward. So it has run well in all 3 starts at Flemington, which have all been in the past 12 months or so with placings and small margins, but they've been in easier races. Handles soft tracks, so you can find positives and negatives. Good win in the Bendigo Cup. You can tie it into the Corfield Cup form through Valiant King, who ran in that race the start prior. Just seems unders at $26, especially with the awkward map. You can definitely have it double that, in my opinion. Number 24, the final runner, Valiant King. Jai McNeil, barrier 10, 51 kilos. $7 was the price after the barrier draw when it drew in barrier 10. It definitely seems a bit short, but there's plenty of positives for this horse. It's just, there's not value in the price. The 5th and final runner for Chris Waller. Jai McNeil has been on for both runs since the freshen up, and he won the Melbourne Cup back in 2020 on Twilight Payment. Drops 1 kilo off the 3rd placing in the Corfield Cup last start when beaten 1.5 lengths. Settled last in the run from barrier number 16 and was suited by the strong tempo. Hit the line like very strongly coming up underneath horses. Waller did say that Corfield Cup wasn't the target, and getting around Corfield was potentially a bit of an issue for this horse, especially if they needed to come wide, which they didn't really need to. But Melbourne Cup is the target, so just got to be very wary of that grand final time for this horse. Did win the Bart Cummings at the start prior of the 25-20 when lapping up that hot tempo set by Gilded Water. Ran down Torrenzino as well. Was a $61 chance there. Had the race run to suit, charging down the middle of the track. Ran 13th in this race last year after running 9th in the Corfield Cup. So if you factor in to run better in the Corfield Cup this year, it can go better again this year. And I think they may have really unlocked the key to this horse over the past couple of months. Worked the line okay in last year's Melbourne Cup, but had barrier 21. Gets barrier 10 this time. And wasn't a bad ride by Craig Newitt, just got a little bit tired late. Was going pretty poor all preparation, so they just might have worked this horse out. The prep earlier this year was pretty average as well. Ran last first up, but things come good at the right time, and it's the grand final stable. We've spoken about this in other videos over the past few weeks. So can't fully rule it out. Just don't think we're getting much to work with the price. They'll be happy to drift back from barrier 10, allow the horse to settle, and just need that good tempo again to run on. Won the Bart Cummings at Flemington 2 runs back, but did struggle in the previous 2 runs here. Gets through the conditions fine if it's wet. My only concern with Valiant King is it sets up to get a similar run to what it got last year and didn't run it out. This is just how much can you trust the trainer and the stable that they've got this horse right to run out the 3,200 meters at this time. You can argue it's been suited by hot tempos at the last 2 runs where it's been able to hit the line very strongly. Couldn't get past Half Yours and River of Stars in that run at the Corfield Cup, but I think if it runs the 3,200, it's definitely in the race. And I'm definitely always wary of the Waller runner with the lightweight. This horse just gives me Salcombe vibes from the 2023 Melbourne Cup, where blew the start, charged home behind without a fight. Wouldn't be surprised if he won. I just feel like $7 is especially short when you zoom out beyond the last 2 runs. So you're really just putting all your eggs into these last 2 performances. But overall for this race, so to summarize, I'm happy to lean towards the Corfield Cup form. We've got 10 runners coming out of it. I think majority of the chances come out of that race. The horses who I think are the best winning chances are Presage Nocturne and Half Yours. So $8.50 and $7 for the two of them. The closer you can get them both to like around the $8 to $9 mark is ideal. Kind of as a 2-bet play, I think they're the best two coming out of the Corfield Cup. Italian King obviously was a good run. I just don't think there's any value at all. I think it's the one that everyone's just caught the eye of those last 2 runs. And then, so it's definitely in the main chances as well. Then the other two, Absurd, which is about a $21 chance. I think it gets its chance this year with having the Corfield Cup run leading in, and also think River of the Stars, who you can tie in with Nocturne at around the $18 mark, is definitely a major chance as well. So those are the top 5. I think the most likely the winner of the race comes from those 5. I haven't decided which way I'm betting yet. That'll be in the best bets in the racing show, which access through the link in the description. The other 3 horses I think are chances. Buckaroo, off the run last year, gets a better setup this time in terms of map, but I think at $9 is too short, so I won't be backing. Number 1, Our Ripper, is the class with Zara on, but at $8 is too short with the question marks, so won't be backing that either. Maidan is the one I haven't fully made a decision. I'll just monitor the market. If we get it 40s or 50s, then it could potentially be interested, but probably not. We'll just need an absolute 11 out of 10 ride from McDonald out from that barrier, and if he nails it, then credit to him. But I think the winner comes from one of those 8 runners. Anything outside of that, I don't really think. It's just going to have to improve so much in order to be winning this race. So that's my game plan for the Melbourne Cup. Hopefully you found this runner by runner insightful, going through the field like this. If you've been following the previous videos, we've gotten the winners of majority of the features so far. I'm definitely not someone scared to back a favorite. I know a lot of people wanted to be like, oh, you just got to back roughies and hope they win. That's definitely not the way to go about it long term. If you can find value in horses at the top of the market, which there often is, you can be very profitable. That's how we've made over 300 units so far in 2025. We picked up almost 11 units on Saturday alone. We've crossed over 1,750 units profit since I started Investor.Bet Racing in October 2021. If you want to follow all the selections for Melbourne Cup Day, which we'll be betting across all the Metro meetings, plus Thursday and Saturday, all those are in the link in the description to set up your account for that. And it's about betting profitably, racing long term. It's not about getting the winner of one particular race. It's how you can consistently profit on a weekly and monthly basis and not have any blowouts and just keep on progressively making more money from horse racing. So that's what the racing show is designed to help you do. Thanks guys for watching. Good luck. Have a great Melbourne Cup Day, and I'll see you in the next video.